Hello TTI students, and welcome to the final week of TTI Tech. For this week, we're going to be talking about infographics, and in your class, you'll be provided with this document here. It's a very simple document. It just has a couple images on the side, the questions that we're going to answer within this infographic or pose, as well as a little bit of information here that we're going to be using to create our infographic chart. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this graphical image because I'm going to be sharing this with all of you, and we're just going to call this sample final. Alright, now I'm also going to go save as. Sample final will be provided to you. Sample final 2 will be the finished. What you'll do is you'll name it with your name of the project. So in here I have several different layers. I have text, symbols, and graphs. Those are the main three. The fourth layer I might use for something else, maybe the title or maybe moving things around. Alright? So what we're looking at here is we have our symbols on the side here. And we're going to be talking about how infographics actually work, because now we've got the graph part of it down, and we're actually looking at infographics. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab the apple. I'm going to go to Object, Graph. We'll have this design option here, and we're going to create a new design. We can rename this design. I'm going to call this Apple. Okay. Next, I have my burger here. I'm going to make a design out of that one as well. Object Graph. Design. New design. Rename burger. Now, in order to make our infographic, we have to know what we're designing. What we're making is a graph here that's essentially doing the same thing we did last week, but instead of using columns, we're actually going to use images to represent our data here. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see the data. We have our basic school lunch here: food, cheeseburger, coleslaw, apples, 2% milk, and fries. It's kind of hard to read, but that's our data. And then we have our symbols here. Now I'm going to just keep out coleslaw for this one. We're just going to use the cheeseburger, apples, milk, and fries as a basic lunch. No extra salad there for us today. And what we're going to do for each item, we're going to create a new graph, and we're going to click. So we have a width and a height. For a cheeseburger, we're going to use the full width of 500. For the other objects, we're going to vary the width. So actually what I'll do for cheeseburgers, I'm going to go a little wider than that. I'm going to go with 600 for width. Now I'm going to overlay this graph and just move it so that's in the same positioning here. Over a bit. And for cheeseburger, our value was 800. Check to create the graph. Close this window here. We go to Object, Graph, Column, and now we can choose our item. Now I've done this before, so there's some previous designs there. We're going to choose burger, and it changes my graph into a burger here. Next thing we can do is we can go to Object, Graph, Column, and instead of vertically scaled, we're going to say uniformly scaled. In this way, our item still retains its original shape, and we can scale them according to the entire size of the graph. Alright. Next thing I can do with this graph here, I want to make sure that I have it in the right layer. Right now I'm in the symbols layer. I want to move my graph up into the graphs layer. And layers are kind of important here because we're going to be playing around with a lot of different things there. So I'm going to lock my other layers for now. And yeah, so there we go. Next thing I can do is I can go Control plus Shift plus G. What this is going to do is it's going to ungroup my graph. I have my graph exactly how I want it, and I don't really want to make any changes to the graph now that I have my image there. So Control-Shift-G will ungroup that graph. And as you can see, it's ungrouped here in our graphics column. And I can just delete some of the extra things that I don't need. So I have my background graph locked, so that's great. And select my lines here and delete them. So now all I'm left with is the cheeseburger itself. And it's perfectly sized to exactly how I want it. Now I can move it around left or right if I would like. My next graph I'm going to create. We're going to say 500 for the rest of them. I just wanted the cheeseburger to be a little bigger because it's the biggest item on our graph here. Align. Next thing we have is the apple, which is going to be a lot smaller. We have 200, which is our value. Now we have our apple here. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go Object, Graph, Column, change it to an apple, and we're going to have it be uniformly scaled. There we go. A very, very small apple. And we're going to do the same thing again. First, we're going to lock our cheeseburger layers. And now we're going to ungroup. Control-Shift-G. And there we go. Select our other graph there, remove that. Next, I can actually take my apple image. If I select it here, I can say group. I can right click and hit group. This is going to group it together. I think this is what I need to do for each one of my images before I move on to the next graph. Lock that. I'll unlock my cheeseburger here. Control-G to group. There we go. So I can move my cheeseburger, say, over a little bit. And my apple. Okay. And I can do the same for each one of my items here. For my apple, I think, well, I'll leave drop shadows for each one of them. There we go. And so we can do the next item on the list, which will be the 2% milk. So I can select the item first, unlock my symbols layer, right click, Object, Graph, Design, New Design, Rename, just call this Milk. Here we go. Create a new graph, same size. And for that, we have the value 400. Enter, check. X out of this. Object, graph once again. You can go to column. We have milk here. Voila. And let's see. Oh, we want to make sure that it's uniformly scaled. And we have our milk. Very, very small. And move this graph up to here. Lock our other layers. Control-Shift-G to Yep, there we go. And we can go Control-Shift-G to ungroup it. And we can delete our background stuff without deleting our cheeseburger here. And then we can regroup it. Oh, we can go group. There we go. So we have milk. And then the last thing we're going to do is similar to what we did yesterday. I'll kind of show you what we had. We had our whole day calorie count, right? And that was going to be 2,500. All right. Remember, we can change the color within this graph. I like the color scheme of green. And in order to do that, just select the color that we're looking at here, and we can change it to a nice light green. Well, maybe not the same color as the apple. We'll do a light blue this time. There we go. And in my graphs layer, we have our sublayers here. I can just take this and move this down to the back. That way we can see it. And you can see the rest of our values there. Alright, so that's that. And the rest of these I will add in, and we'll do that on the next part of our video. Alright, so that's all we have for this part.